I'm Jim Viola, President and CEO of HAI. Welcome to this month's edition of VFR, Viola's Flight Report, where we review what HAI has been doing for you. This past month has been very busy, but has been great to see our industry so active again. We added a new director to our board. I flew my helicopter to a town hall and air show in Missouri, sponsored by U.S. Representative Sam Graves, and I was part of a team that attended the EAA AirVenture show in Oshkosh. However, I think the most important thing I did for HAI members last month was testify on the state of our industry before the US House Subcommittee on Aviation. I'll share my testimony with you later in this video. In July, we began using a monthly theme for these VFR videos, and the focus of this edition is human factors. We are deep in the middle of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, and our industry is busy at work. Under these conditions, or just about any time or anywhere, human factors can cause accidents. Human factors play a key role in the successes and the failure of our daily operations. In the not-so-distant past, many claim that accident investigators focus too much on pilot error in aviation accidents, ignoring clear lapses in leadership and culture. Now, some submit that the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, with investigations focusing on supervisory and organizational culture failures when evidence clearly points to the aircrew deficiencies. The reality is that a host of human factors influences, both good and bad, are present in most behaviors and outcomes in our complex vertical aviation industry. Our challenge is to find and fix those negative influences, or latent hazards, as some have labeled them, before the holes in the proverbial Swiss cheese line up, resulting in costly losses. An equally important task is to identify, promote, and repeat the positive human factors that might have helped prevent accidents or reduce their severity. If you have not already done so, I encourage leaders, supervisors, and frontline employees to all learn how human factors can play such a vital role in driving triumph or tragedy in your operations. We will have two guest speakers at the VAST Global Conference in Dallas in October who will address human factors in much more detail. I encourage anyone interested in safety to attend this 3-day event, which will focus entirely on VTOL safety. Please visit conference.vast.aero for more information on the VAST 2022 Global Conference. If you cannot wait until October, I refer you to the FAA to learn more about the Dirty Dozen, the 12 most common causes of accidents involving human factors. The agency has a concise 2-page flyer that addresses each of the human factors that causes the greatest number of aviation accidents and incidents. Please visit the web address on your screen to learn more about what you can do to reduce accidents at your operations. Another theme this month is representation. HAI is the primary voice of the rotorcraft industry, and I am regularly the only person in town halls, other meetings, and hearings to present, support, and sometimes defend the vertical lift industry. One recent opportunity to represent you and your businesses occurred when Congressman Sam Graves invited me to his home state to visit Tarkio, Missouri, where I spoke on behalf of the helicopter industry at his town hall meeting. Representative Graves holds this event in cooperation with a local EAA chapter that produces the Wingnuts Flying Circus Air Show. I made a cross-country helicopter flight to and from this event, and it was great to be able to fly long distances again. Cade Clark, our Vice President of Government Affairs, flew with me on the way to Missouri, and John Shea, our Director of Government Affairs, rode back with me to Washington. The three of us were proud to represent the VTOL industry in Missouri. HAI also sent a larger team to the EAA AirVenture show in Oshkosh, where we talked with attendees about the benefits of vertical flight. We had hundreds of people stop by our booth to talk with us, and we were happy to share information about how helicopters have been conducting advanced air mobility missions for decades. Our pilots are used to flying in low-altitude, congested airspaces, and our manufacturers are building the next generation of aircraft. As a result, we naturally see the helicopter industry as leading the movement towards AAM. Finally, I want to share with you my testimony before the US House of Representatives. I was invited to testify on the state of general aviation at a House Subcommittee on Aviation, where I represented you, our members, as part of the rotorcraft industry. My testimony doesn't take too long, so we thought it might make sense to show you all of it.
So now I'll turn to Jim Viola from the Helicopter Association International. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Larson, Chairman DeFazio, Senior Member Graves, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for your leadership and for holding this hearing today. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today. Every day, vertical flight serves the public good. The unique capabilities of vertical flight mean we can accomplish missions that no other aircraft can. Our members perform various services, including air medical, law enforcement, firefighting, heavy construction, urban air mobility, and more. For example, helicopter air ambulance operators transport roughly 1,000 injured or critically ill patients every day. Ensuring the safety of those who fly is always HAI's top priority. Air Safety Management System, or SMS, is vital to reducing accidents and ensuring that every person understands they are responsible for safety. HAI's SMS program allows all operators and maintenance providers to elevate their safety. HAI supports requiring SMS programs for all operations, carrying passengers for hire, and strongly recommends that all aviation operations implement an SMS program. One of the most significant safety projects we have undertaken is co-leading the Vertical Aviation Safety Team, or VAST. It's an expansion of the International Helicopter Safety Team, and I'm honored to serve as a co-advisor with Miguel Marin, who represents the International Civil Aviation Organization. And VAST is a public-private initiative designed to enhance safety in the vertical flight industry worldwide. Our programs of safety are designed also for future aircraft. HAI has been an early supporter of AAM and UAS technology. Our members have been operating in vertical mode for 75 years. It makes complete sense for our members to embrace and use this new technology. We strongly support the development, certification, and safe integration of AAM and UAS aircraft into the national airspace system. The FAA must have an effective yet flexible certification system that enhances flight safety and enables the swift recognition and adoption of new technologies while facilitating a user-friendly process that is economically viable. Investment in AAM infrastructure, along with the improvements in the certification process, will ensure that the United States remains as a world leader in aviation. Today, helicopters are performing many urban air mobility missions that future AAM aircraft will do. To remedy future roadblocks for AAM, we must solve current pinch points for the vertical flight. Airspace congestion resulting in reduced access to low-level IFR routes is of serious concern for current helicopter operations. So too is the access to the ground infrastructure. We must increase vertical flight's ground and air access points or face a detrimental impact on the future success of AAM. We must always consider community compatibility. HAI's Fly Neighborly program is a voluntary initiative for employing noise mitigation technology and increasing effective community communication. On June 24th, HAI partnered with the Eastern Region Helicopter Council, introducing a helicopter noise complaint system for the Washington, D.C. metro area. Using available flight tracking data, the systems will accurately identify likely aircraft generating the concerns. Just flying safely and in compliance with the regulations is not enough. We must also fly neighborly. It is in the best interest of everyone. HAI is dedicated to reducing greenhouse gas emissions from aircraft and developing and using sustainable aviation fuel. Incentivizing SAF and investing in sustainable aviation initiatives are essential steps Congress should take. Another important environmental issue is the transition to lead-free aviation fuel. The Elimination Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions, the EAGLE initiative, as mentioned earlier, lays out a plan to transition to lead-free aviation fuels by the end of 2030. HAI is committed to this partnership. Due to the pandemic-related economic disruptions, many seasoned pilots and technicians retired early. Congress, the FAA, and industry stay focused and recognize that developing the next generation of pilots and mechanics requires a long-term commitment. We appreciate Congress's creation and funding of the Aviation Workforce Development Grant Program in the 2018 Reauthorization Act, and HAI strongly encourages continued support of the grants program. HAI also encourages congressional support for the innovative state programs that enable outreach and education to students to get started in the aviation industry. Management of the federal spectrum policy remains an issue also of high concern for general aviation. In coordination, we look for a long-term solution and replacement of the safety-critical equipment. I thank the committee again for the opportunity to provide the perspective of the vertical flight industry, and I look forward to our work together on these important issues. My full comments are offered for the record, and I welcome any questions.
Mr. Viola, as one of the chairs of the Quiet Skies Caucus, I am particularly concerned with the effects of helicopter noise on the lives of my constituents here in the District of Columbia. Helicopter noise is a major concern, not only in my jurisdiction, but in the National Capital Region. What steps do you believe the Federal Aviation Administration and helicopter operators should take to reduce helicopter noise?
And thank you for that question. And whether the helicopter, today or tomorrow, we're talking about AAM, and I mentioned earlier the society good that vertical flight brings to society with the emergency air ambulance and others. And we understand that we do need that community compatibility. And so we do offer the Fly Neighborly initiative, which is a voluntary noise reduction program as we continue to work with communities such as yours. And then as part of that, we look to the stakeholders to see what we can do, how we can operate with a reduced noise footprint. Of course, the future aircraft have that promise, and we look forward to keeping open the ability to operate inside the cities today as we get that future technology that will enable us to operate even more quietly and more friendly. But as in June, we were down here with the Eastern Region Helicopter Council, and we introduced the new noise initiative for Washington, D.C. We established a noise complaint system for individuals in and around the region to share their concerns. HAI and the Eastern Region Helicopter Committee aim to work with the D.C. community to review and process the noise complaints and then use this data to help mitigate the noise. Using available flight tracking data, we'll be able to accurately identify aircraft that are participating or not participating in some of the measures that we're trying to work with you and other government officials with to try to focus that increased community compatibility. So just flying safely in compliance is not enough. We want to be neighborly, and we hope with the advancements of the technology that are coming, we'll continue to get safer so we can continue to use vertical flight into the cities in the future. And you've heard some of the other panel members here with the technology, with the electric aircraft and others that will come so that we keep access is very key at this point.
Thank you, that's useful. Continuing with you, the Government Accountability Office conducted a study of helicopter noise in the National Capital Region and recommended that the Federal Aviation Administration develop a mechanism to exchange information with all helicopter operators in the National Capital Region. Now, I understand the Helicopter Association International and the Eastern Region Helicopter Council, in cooperation with the FAA, are doing a test of such a mechanism this summer. How will the information gathered by this mechanism aid in the reduction of helicopter noise in the National Capital Region?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for that question. I think that as you asked as well, is it's a test program. We're looking to make sure that we correlate the noise issues that are coming in and the locations and the aircraft. And then that's when we'll use the technology to see if there's a way based on what aircraft, when, and locations. And we are working with the FAA and other agencies to make sure that we can get a clear picture of what is going on today and then plan a future and work with the community to continue to increase the compatibility.
Last question, Mr. Viola. I read in your testimony about the alarming situation ongoing for our air tour operators at several of our national parks. It seems the FAA and National Park Service are rushing to meet a court-ordered deadline, but have opted to exclude critical stakeholders like the National Parks Overflights Advisory Group. As you mentioned, air tour operators offer people with disabilities and often the elderly an opportunity to view and enjoy some of our nation's most treasured landscapes they otherwise would not be able to see. I have also been told that some of these air group operators in off-season help the federal government fight wildfires and other natural disaster events. Do you have any suggestions on how we can help alleviate this issue?
Thank you very much for that question and pointing that issue. You know, in 2020, the NPOG was established by Congress. That's really all we need to do is follow what was established by Congress. There was a court order in 2020 that drove the two agencies together, and they basically went underground, the National Park Service and the FAA, and they're now processing all that information on their own. What you had required in 2020 and 2000 as Congress was for industry to work together, and the solutions we were working were, you know, what aircraft were making what noise, what altitudes. We were actually trying to work together to make sure that we can continue to have access for the public. And as you probably hear as well with your constituents, anytime I tell people that, you know, the National Park Service is trying to prevent all overflights, they're shocked because they have actually gone out and participated, and we're able to view our beautiful parks from the air. So I think going back and looking at the NPOG, what was established in 2000, and ensure that cooperation happens.
Well, thank you, Mr. Viola, and you have my commitment. I'll continue to look into this.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Many of the people who come to Las Vegas know that it's more than just the bright lights on the strip. They like to look at our surrounding areas. And so I'm interested in the work that you are doing with the national parks, Mr. Viola, as well, because I think there are 23 national parks. And I just wonder what impact you think this plan is going to have on the helicopter tourism industry out of Las Vegas, many of whom fly over Lake Mead or Grand Canyon.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Yes, that's a problem, and we are trying to highlight that right now, that the plans as they are being put together without going through the NPOG, without having industry input, are very concerning to being able to, you know, put a lot of those people out of business. So yes, we would love to follow up with on this topic and provide as much detail as you'd like to hear, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd like to do that. And there's no ability to have local government input or the convention center input. It's just strictly behind closed doors with the National Park Service.
Yeah, the technique they
FAA?
are using is, you know, they have done some open meetings, but you'll see by the meetings, or if you watch one of them on YouTube, they're really not taking any questions. Some of your constituents have actually written in and provided additional documents, and they have not been acknowledged. So it's not a good thing that's going on right now in that area.
Well, I appreciate if you'd work with me and see if we can't at least have some voice in there.
Yes, ma'am. We will reach out and connect and ensure that we work together on this.
Well, thank you. One other thing I'd like to ask you, I'm the co-chair of the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Caucus, and we've been hearing about some unauthorized drones who interfere with the helicopters, especially when they're fighting fires. Would you kind of address that, of how we can be sure that only authorized drones are in that airspace and they don't interfere with any operations y'all might be engaged in?
Yes, ma'am. So currently, when we have firefighting operations going on, the FAA will put out a temporary flight restriction in those areas. But what happens is it ends up being the participants, or the ones that are qualified to fly the UAS, will stay out of those areas. So what we do have is we have non-participants, or people that aren't flying in accordance with the rules, that are actually interfering. They're interfering with firefighting, and they're also interfering with aeromedical, you know, and nothing better that they try to do is launch a UAS so they can get a look at an accident scene. So we're really trying to do some public awareness and working with the FAA on ways to prevent or have some counter-drone capability. So when there are some public safety issues going on, such as firefighting and or air ambulance emergencies going on, that we can somehow help keep those out of the area. The question was for anyone here, you know, as we're trying to keep the unauthorized drone activities from becoming a safety hazard to general aviation, They just don't understand that there's other aviation that is out there.
Is the FAA's current approach to rulemaking and certification for UAS and AAM operations satisfactory? If not, please elaborate on the ways that you would improve the FAA's approach from both an organizational and a policymaking standard.
Very important question indeed with the FAA's ability to be flexible with certification and also ensure the safety. I really think that I would recommend a top-level look at even what the FAA mission statement is today, and then see what it is we're requiring them. We all talked workforce issues today. The FAA as a government agency also has a workforce. I think you'll hear some other peers here talk about, the growth of government as well as, industry side. I think there's a lot of work that we can do on industry side to help keep the FAA at a smaller, more oversight capability without all the necessary for growing a workforce that tries to keep up with the rapid pace of technology. As you can see, working on behalf of the VTOL industry is important, but keep in mind that I represent you. If you want HAI's help on a particular issue, please let me know. If you want to show your support for the work we are doing, or if you disagree entirely with me, I want to know those things too. Please send me an email at president@rotor.org. Well, that wraps up this month's edition of VFR. Please email me with your comments or suggestions on how HAI can provide you with better service. Until next time, fly safe, stay safe, and keep those rotors turning.